Hey everybody, thank you for listening to Filling in the Gaps. Be sure to check us out on our social media pages at Filling in the Gaps. From there you can get updates on show releases and anything special we may be doing. Sit back and enjoy the show. Should be a lot of fun.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Filling the Gaps. As always, my name is Rich, and I am your host from the great state of Ohio, joined by my good friend Cam from down in the biggest and baddest state of Texas. And Cam, you just went to a Longhorns game yesterday, and they said that they blew. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, how was the game? You went with some friends and family?
Yeah, actually, it was an amazing time. Austin gets hopping out there. We had 103,000 people inside the stadium, so. Yeah,
that is nuts.
It was buck wild, and then Austin knows how to party after the game, so it was awesome. I had a blast. Speaking of awesome,
I sat quietly at home and watched Netflix like we do in Ohio. Ohio peeps know what's up. But for those of you guys who knew, we are not a sports podcast. Sorry about that. We are a D&D and tabletop role-playing podcast. But what we like to do is we are more about helping you guys to fill in the gaps during your game sessions. Whether you are a player trying to become a DM or a DM who's running a game week after week, we know it can be hard to come up with content for the next session. So what we do is over the next 50 minutes, we're going to be taking a random theme and a random scenario and smashing those things together in order to help you come up with some kind of idea that hopefully sparks your next great encounter or episode or session or whatever it is you call your game nights. Cam, we had a new review, though, and you want to give that guy a shout out.
I did. This is actually from iTunes user Adam LeGrave. I actually spoke to Adam on Twitter, I believe. He found us via the Hit Dice podcast episode that we did last week.
Heyo.
Said, instantly hooked. 5 stars. A must-have on your podcast list if you are even remotely interested in D&D and DMing. Fantastic ideas for quests and campaigns, which end up being pretty fleshed out at the end of each episode, yet leave more than enough room to customize and grow for your campaign. The hosts are very funny. I was actually putting my own thoughts about myself on this. No, the hosts are very, very fun.
And handsome.
Yeah, and so sexy. The hosts are very, very fun and engaging, and it's great to get a glimpse into the arc building process of these champs. Too long didn't read. Don't be dumb. Subscribe and listen. Thanks again, Adam. Thanks for joining the Discord and sharing that cool map as well. That was really, really well done. And of course, you got to color it in. If the kid's right there coloring with you, you got to color it in. So I'm all and if you guys, that.
And shameless plug, if you guys want to get that map that Adam sent us, you can actually join us on the Discord. We throw resources back and forth at each other a lot. I say we, but I'm kind of a ghost on Discord sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're definitely a lurker. Yeah, you're a lurker for sure.
I lurk a lot, and then I post I'm like, hey guys, check out this link, and I don't send a link, and everyone's like, what's wrong with Rich? Is he secretly 80 years old? Does he not know how the internet works?
Hello, young children, you whippersnappers. I've come on down to provide you a link. So, Grandpa, that's a picture of a grilled cheese. Eat up! This is the internet.
Isn't it hilarious? I printed it off the Facebook memes.
Speaking of Facebook memes, I have a question for you, man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to do transitions anymore. I've started to just get to the point where I'm like, speaking of Facebook memes, you want to roll some dice?
Always.
Shall we?
That's
shall
totally
we
how we do our transitions.
What'd you say?
I think we shall. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, hold on. Shall we roll? Okay, I've got to
Let's do it. Sorry, guys. We are all over the place. We were saying today, we've been playing a lot this week, Divinity 2 Original Sin. So we've been talking like just about every night this week and staying up way too late. You guys, first off, check out Divinity 2 Original Sin. Is not a sponsor yet, but it's an amazing game.
Yeah, it's an incredible game.
You guys out there will love it. But yes, Cam, sorry, I totally forgot your question. Yeah, let's roll. Okay, what we're going to do is myself and Cam both have two 20-item lists sent in by listeners, people on Twitter, people on Instagram. So I'm going to be today rolling for the themes, kind of where we're at, the flavor, and Cam is going to be rolling for the scenarios, the substance. And once we roll, we'll figure out what the rest of the episode is going to be about.
Let's do this.
Let's do it. Whoa, Cam, wait, stop. That dice you rolled, it sounded, just something about it sounded magical. That's a weird way of like describing it, but I'm like at a loss for words. Where did you get that dice from?
I got that from our sponsor, Libris Arcana. There is a little bit of magic in every dice. That's what they do say.
That's the Arcana in Libris Arcana Dice. If you guys didn't know, we are sponsored by a dice company called Libris Arcana Dice. And here's the deal they cut us. And this is a great deal. If you want to get dice that just bounce along the table, not too much bouncing where it's knocking over your pieces, but just the right amount to where you're like, yeah, that was a good roll. Then you gotta check out our sponsor, Libris Arcana Dice. You can find them on Google, librisarcanadice.com. They will give you 25% off your first order of either 1 month of dice coming to you every month with one set of dice, or you can get 3 sets of dice sent to you every 3 months. That's 25% off your first order if you use the promo code FITG for filling in the gaps. But that's our shameless plug to our beautiful sponsor. Cam, what did you get for your roll this week?
And let me hold on. Gotta blow away some of this magic dust. It's hard to see the number. I'm so full. I got another one from Dunn. Closing a portal. I really like that.
Closing a portal. Okay, and I've got, I rolled a 10, which is Tundra, and that one comes from Molly.
Oh,
closing a portal.
So we've always got a bunch of like tropical style episodes. Getting a little bit colder is something I'm pretty excited about. We haven't really.
We can talk about some like different survival elements with that. Like we can talk about like cold.
Yes, I really enjoy that. So when we talk about closing a portal, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Well, closing a portal and then mixing it with Tundra, man, I feel like in my mind I see like there's this long craggy ravine. It's like a glacier on one side and like a sharp drop-off cliff on the other side, and you're walking towards it, and just blowing in your face is this wind and this snow and this sleet. Makes the ground slippery, and as you're walking closer, this portal itself is what has created this tundra. Someone opened it a long time ago, and just out of it comes this sheer cold. And so when you close that, you're almost maybe sent to close it to restore this land. I don't know. That's what I see. What do you see?
I actually love that. It's sort of the tundra itself is treated as if it was like a blight on the land. And maybe long ago, the land was, rich with fauna and flora, and it was sort of had a bunch of life. And now it's become this sort of like iced over world. I also love the idea of the portal spewing out the tundra, and so within the portal is this like frozen world that your players might have to go into to get out of. And like what Wes said last week about his conclusions aren't always conclusions. So if I was thinking like brainstorming an ending is like going in to close a portal, and as your players pull away the source that keeps the portal open, now they have to race to get out. In time, otherwise being trapped inside.
I like that.
You know what I mean?
I like that a lot. That way it's not just like you're at the portal and you press a button and it closes and you're like, success.
I put a rock in it.
I covered it with a rock, says every barbarian and fighter ever. And actually maybe a lot of your players who might try to like capsize rocks or something like that. But I just found a cool monster in Mordekainen's Tomb of Foes.
See, I gotta get that book, man.
Dude, it's good. It's good. That and Volos are just the ones I always flip through.
Yeah. So what did you find?
I found a frost salamander. It is a challenge rating 9.
All right.
It is a 6-legged salamander-like creature, but the top of it is like a dark purple with a light blue on the bottom. It's got icy teeth and like cold marble-like eyes, huge claws. It is a huge elemental, so that's a huge creature, and it can. Let's see. It has multi-attack, freezing breath, bite. And they are devourers of heat. So this could be something that I don't think this is like the big bad that caused the portal, but I think this is for sure something that is now living around the portal, or maybe ventures out of the portal, eats something because they devour heat, and then ventures back in to hibernate for a little bit.
Yeah. So I have an idea of the intro, sort of how we, if we're going to start by that nature, if you will.
Okay.
You know how we themed I think it was episode 19 about the giant pyramid.
If you guys didn't know, Cam treats all of our episodes like his children. He has a little photo book with them. He knows them all by heart. It's really adorable.
I like the stories we create. It's a lot of fun. I look back at them all. I don't listen to them, more than 15 times, but at least 15.
More than 15 times.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the episode with the pyramids and the Egyptian theme, right? I loved that theme, and I loved what that provided us. But I feel a similar pull in the sense of how this episode will be going, in the sense that we can sort of provide some Viking-esque theme stuff going on with it as well.
Okay.
And even incorporate some of those ideas like that. So, you said the frost, everything could be frost theme, which is awesome. I think an ice theme, a fully ice theme area could just work really, really well. But you have Nordic runes, and you have these old temples and all these different things. So I think that this could be sort of a Nordic Viking tribe that has opened this portal, and it sort of, to me, fits so well with how Vikings treat the world, where it's a expand and conquer, and sort of it's an ever moving outward glacier that sort of just consumes. So that's how I sort of view it. And so when they open this portal, the ice around the portal that continues to freeze things is just the representation of them sort of overtaking that's their sort of nature.
Like a sign of their folly.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Harken Stone from The Hobbit? Yeah, sure, it was incredibly valuable, but it came at the price of costing them their home, type of thing.
Right. And so now they're always seeking more and more land, because they just become cold and become almost cold like stone, and so they're always trying to find ways out, because the world that they've owned essentially for this whole time is they've sort of used it all up.
So, we could go with that too, that idea of if we're going back and looking at hooks, it could be a cool idea to even use that kind of hobbitish type hook, and some of your players might pick it up, but have these wandering Viking-like people. They don't have to be dwarves, but have these wandering barbarian-like people who are maybe hired as mercenaries. I know in my world that I'm running right now, there's a boat called the Bijak Gothgard, or something like that. That's just all of these barbarian Viking-like people whose land was destroyed, a clan of survivors, and now hunt for money. But you could easily have one of a character like that approach you and say, I've been away from my home for too long. I can tell that my sheer strength, my tribe's strength, isn't enough. There's something about your party that lets you get things done. I'd like you to restore my homeland, and if you do, I'll give you this bestowed relic that's buried deep within a frozen citadel or something like that.
Right. What about the idea of a frozen a relic or something like that? Just sort of stoked a flame in me, where there's something that's very valuable that has become frozen because of this portal, and then once the portal is closed, then this thing thaws, and now it's available to the world or something like that.
I love that. I think that would be a good hook, either as a payment that someone who's giving them the quest says hey, if you do this, I'll tell you where this treasure's at, and you can only get it by completing the quest anyway, so win-win. Yep. Or as that's what they get for completing the quest, is that happens in front of them, and they're able to be oh, cool, let's go over there now.
Right. Yeah. I take that one for sure. I also like the idea of it being something that is sort of like a pillar of a lost civilization, and then once because I think that sometimes your players go on quest thinking that it's always the right thing to do. So what if it is where this portal has frozen over this, let's say a centralized pylon in the center of a town.
Ooh, yeah.
And then the pylon itself, once it thaws, sort of exposes the world back to this civilization that was frozen in time, and they were, warfaring, or they were really, really mean or really bad or something like that. What do you think about that?
I love that idea. I think, too, if you're wanting to use something like this as like a first session, and you wanted to have that classic, like, betrayed by my quest giver, you could do it something where maybe... So when I think of like the Tundra, and hearing you say like a town that has this obelisk in the center of it that's just freezing everything, in my mind what I think is this civilization did this on purpose. Like, they were like, hey, we need to freeze this land super quick. And when I think of that, I think that maybe the reason why that would be is because there's some cold-blooded creature they're trying to keep, like, locked up. And when I think of cold-blooded creatures, I think of course, the dragon in Dungeons & Dragons or the Tesseract or something like that. And I think that could be a cool thing where your quest giver is maybe the minion of a dragon who has hired you, knowing that... Like, with these lies and, like, hey, that could be a cool way of having this villain where you might even kill the quest giver out of vengeance. But he's happy to die if his master is saved. And now you have this dragon that you've got to, like, grow and, grow in your strength to one day eventually fight. So that could be a cool session 0.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And, yeah, I think that the players unintentionally releasing a dragon on the world is such a cool visual thing to me. For example, when the frost thaws and the portal closes and it starts to thaw, I can just it's the iconic scene of the dragon's eye opening, and ice is like icicles have shattered around its eyelids and things like that. And so it's just. That's perfect to me. I kind of love this so much. Like, right as we're going right now, we essentially have gone. The minion of the dragon has sent your players into the portal to close the portal, to stop the freeze, to get the dragon to come back up, so that they can then try to rule the world, or whatever the dragon does, whatever the dragon's motivation is. What do you think about that?
I love it. I think also going back to the whole idea of like, hey, if you close this portal, I'll tell you where to go find treasure. I think he sends these guys to that cave where the dragon is frozen, or that citadel or whatever where he's like frozen. That way, like, he knows, like, I'm going to send them there and my master's going to kill them. But I think that, one thing you can do with dragons is you can make them incredibly prideful and kind of just have them like beat aside these heroes and say, like, leave me, mortals, or leave me, scum, or whatever like that. I've got a kingdom to reinstate, or something like that.
Yeah.
That way the players are even like, oh, we gonna kill that dragon one day. He didn't even kill me proper. But let's think about this real quick. So I think we've got a really good skeleton, a really good beginning, a really good end. What do we do for that middle portion? So going back to Tundra, going back to snow, I don't know, is there anything you think of when it comes to surviving in the Tundra that could be cool mechanics or cool just ideas to throw along as players are trying to get to this portal?
I think exposure provides us a lot of opportunities with maps and stuff like that. So what you can do is essentially, if you go into certain areas outside of cover or something like that, you are prone to exposure. And so then you can take on like exposure tokens essentially. And so it's like, the longer you're out there, the less valuable you become, and closer you get to freezing. Now you gain other benefits, like you gain freezing resistances and stuff, but at the same time you get like negatives to your rolls, or something to that nature, until you ultimately freeze.
I mean, just off the top of my head, some things I think of, there is the exhaustion system in D&D. So you could play off of that and just have cold equal exhaustion. But you could also do with the freeze tokens. Some things I think of when I think of players gain cold is, I think at first maybe you lose some movement speed. Like once you get like 1 or 2 tokens, you move 5 foot less. Maybe after you get a few more, you lose an AC. Or something like that, because like you're slowing down, like you're just so frozen. Maybe your max health after that goes down by like 5 points or 10 points, depending on your party's level.
Right.
And I think the incentive of being out in the cold could be this idea of I think this quest giver gives you like a map or something like that. Not like a battle map, but like a map of like, hey, here's how you can get there. Here's the safest route. I've kind of planned it for you. And you can see that like there's these camps along the way. Maybe there's like 3 camps until you get to the portal.
Right.
But it's gonna take you guys like 4 hours to travel from one camp to another, or I guess it has to be longer than that. It's going to take you guys 10 hours to travel from one camp to another, and maybe the thing could be there's 5 hours a day where it is completely safe for you to be out in the weather, like because of the sun being out, or because of maybe there's not as much wind, like you don't get cold resistances or you don't get cold tokens.
Right.
But if you leave too early in the morning, there's just this frigid wind that like tears into you guys, giving you guys 2 freeze tokens. If you go at night, it's still a little bit warmer from the sun being out before that, but there are creatures that come out at night. So you get 1 freeze token and the chance to get into some kind of combat.
I love that.
That way there's like that risk and reward of like how are we wanting to travel.
And it's also like a management of resources as well.
Exactly.
I think that there could be something done really well with a map where he could provide them, a multitude of paths, and each of which have different varying levels of like campfires or something like that. Yeah. But there has to be incentives to go down certain areas versus one. So like maybe there's an easy path, but it has very little treasure, or it has very little, benefits to it. Or maybe there's one side that's got a lot of campfires but a lot of monsters. One side has very few campfires and very few monsters. And so then, if they chose that path right there, it's like a risk reward sort of weighing the options kind of thing.
No, I love that. And I think that's where that frost salamander could come in too. Because it's a challenge rating 9, so even for seasoned adventurers, it's not something to laugh at. And maybe the fastest route is this like, going back to the idea of like a kind of like a canyon. When you're going through this frozen canyon, but that frost salamander lives in a cave up on the canyon walls. And what you can do with that too is to players who aren't about like, let's stand here in this bottleneck and fight and get themselves killed, they could like collapse a wall, or they could try to collapse the canyon. You could have a cool avalanche scene. That way, like, if they don't just want a straight fight, there's still some options for them to be like, well, maybe we try to go on the top of the canyon, or maybe we try to sneak through, or maybe if it does show up, we do something to collapse the canyon.
I think that you could do so many cool different things to get to the portal, because like I'm thinking that it could be a type of coastal city, and so maybe there's like a Viking-esque ship that your players have to row on and get somewhere, and then they start. There's Viking skeletons that pop up and try to board them and stuff.
How cool would it be if like in the center of this map there's just this like huge ship that's frozen, and it looks like it's just sitting. Oh my gosh! And it looks like it's just sitting like on land, and then when you walk out there, like someone realizes like, oh my gosh, we're standing on like a frozen lake. Like this boat is frozen in the ice, and that's where you could have those like ghostly barbarian like spirits come out.
Yes.
If you wanted to be incredibly dastardly, you could have something living underneath the water.
Yeah. You also have the how do your players escape this lake without falling into the water? What happens if they do fall into the water? Man, that's awesome. That's actually the best way to do it.
But if they go there, like give them some kind of like incentive for loot. Like, because that could probably be what some players are thinking is like, oh, look at that. And maybe you even have one of your players, that's where, those history rolls can come in handy. Is you have a player like roll history, and they're like, oh, you know what? I've read in a book somewhere. Or your player remembers reading in a book the tale of like this ship who, wasn't felled by, fierce waves or anything like that, but it was felled by just cold weather, and you're like, oh yeah, there was a lot of treasure aboard that ship. If we check it out, we might be able to find something.
See, and that'd be amazing. It could be like a +1 magic weapon with frost damage as well, or something like that inside there. Yeah, we can be simple. We can be simple with it, but I still enjoy it regardless. I love the idea of the lake thing, so that's definitely that right there alone has me wanting to run it right away, because it's such a unique feeling where it's like, what? Why is there a ship on the land? And then it's player stomps on the ground and hears the echo of the water beneath him, and you're like, uh-oh, this ain't gonna be fun. So what about inside the portal? Because I think that the right way to go would be going into the portal, right? Like,
oh no, I agree. I think like the off switch has to be in there,
right.
or at least like maybe there's a certain. I mean, I kind of like, I don't know. In my mind, I can see it going two ways. Either you enter the portal and you are in like the elemental plane of frost, or part of the elemental plane of water where it is just frost. And you have to go in there and find some kind of like, I don't know, magical tether or certain like stone or whatever. I could also see it being where you enter into this portal and you enter into like a mirror type world. Maybe play off like the ice being reflective or something like that.
Right.
But the idea too, you had the idea of an obelisk you have to destroy. So maybe portal isn't necessarily like you go into a portal and close it. Maybe portal, we always take liberties. Maybe it is this obelisk in the center of this town that has just these pulsating magic runes pushing out all of this, snow and cold and wind, and you have to shut that off. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that the switch has to be inside the portal. Like, I think that we got to get in there to turn that off, because I like the tension of having to get back out before the portal closes. Or something like that. Like, does that make sense?
True. Yep. No,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
And
yep,
so
that would be awesome.
Because like if the players are like, "Oh, we did it," and then it's like the snow all settles to the ground and it becomes silent, but then they start to realize that the portal itself is closing, and it's big enough, and there's a you can manage that size by the rounds, I guess, or something like that. But I like that idea for sure. So, but I was thinking that it could be sort of a dungeon of sorts.
Okay.
Sort of like a classic dungeon in a way, but with Nordic themes. To me, it would be the best way to go about doing it.
Okay.
You know
I
what
like
I
this a
mean?
lot. Yep. Yep.
And so that's sort of what I was thinking, like Viking skeletons, giant ice elementals, ice spikes come out of the ground.
Well, hey, how about mixing the two things together? Maybe this portal is in some kind of Viking burial chamber, and they opened it there. So there's still like there's the upper dungeon where you're going through this very Viking-esque, frosted over dungeon where now over centuries creatures have moved in. Like maybe you have frost kobolds or frost goblins or wraiths who are, because think about it too, remember you are the bad guys in this scenario on accident, so you're wanting to close this portal that awakens this dragon, so all of these undead, all of these people in these tombs, these ghosts would want to stop you.
So their motive is there 100%. Yeah.
And for you, you're just like, oh, of course, it's a dungeon. There's undead, so that must mean we're the good guys. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, as a player, if I see a hole, I'm getting into it. So I'm just, that's a given for me.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm, so I'm hopping in.
And then the quote unquote like second level is you get to this room where this portal is actually opened. And then once you get into that actual portal, that's the second level of the dungeon. I'm saying that with air quotes because it doesn't mean you have to descend a flight of stairs or up a flight of stairs. It just means that the whole environment changes drastically.
Yes. I love that.
So what does that look like to you? What is the elemental plane of frost? What I'm seeing, I'm sorry I'm rambling a lot, because I don't know how this would work, but what I'm seeing in my mind,
in your mind's eye,
in my mind, I'm seeing and this is kind of different, but you go through this portal and maybe it's not a dungeon as much as it is like a boss fight. And when you go through, like you have to push your way in through all this wind, and it's just like just blinding your face, and you can feel like your skin cracking. But when you go through, it's just one large, still, everlasting, almost seeming plane of snow, just like outstretching as far as I can see into the horizon, just like a foot of snow or 2 foot of snow. And you're just like walking through it. There's like northern lights above you, and the sky's kind of like darkish purple.
Yes.
And then the snow itself begins to kind of like move and shift, and you kind of have this boss fight against this huge snow monster. So like the snow like pulls up and forms a giant hand that reaches at you, and you see this face behind it. I love that. And you're kind of fighting these appendages. So don't just snipe your players with like, it opens up and eats you. Yes.
Yeah, that's the source of all of the wind and the thing like that. And so you're essentially going into the portal inside the portal. You're like, because you're going into the secondary plane of this dungeon, and this is what these Vikings opened to freeze this world or something like that. And that's just why that dragon, the only way that they realized how to get rid of that dragon was to freeze it through using this method. And then finding this big giant snow monster, which is the source of all this cold, is what the ultimate battle is, or at least what your players feel like is the end, until they realize it.
I'm going to pull out my DMG. I'm going to start flipping through and see if there's anything for like magical frost items. Maybe we can make that at the center of this portal too.
Yeah.
As I flip through, what do you think of? So do you see what I'm saying with like this huge, like the snow itself is forming these giant appendages coming at you?
Yes. It's like Andros from Star Fox. It's like a giant. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So how does that kind of fight work, do you think?
Well, I think that you treat each appendage as an individual monster.
Okay.
So I think of it like in terms of like a video game boss fight. If you've ever fought something giant or massive in a game, you take it step by step. And so like you defeat the different components of this monster, and each time it brings about a different sort of mechanic. So like the first one could be the 2 fists, like 2 giant hands coming out of the snow and trying to grab players. And so they're just pretty straightforward. You know, it's going to try to grapple the players and suffocate them underneath the snow while trying to freeze them.
You could use like a Bigby's magic hand for like a template if you wanted to.
Right. And then the next one could be from the ground sprouts a bunch of, then it becomes the numbers game, and there's like a bunch of snowmen, like legitimately snowmen, and there's ranged snowmen and close up fighters, and it's essentially just like the cliched 3-ball snowman with a carrot in the nose and everything, but they've got shields and swords and stuff too. I know that's a little whimsical, but I just thought it would be pretty funny to do that way.
No, but it changes the combat from being all against one big thing to overrun by minions.
Right.
And that does help different players feel. A wizard casting fireball feels okay against one big target, but feels great against a bunch of little ones.
Right. And then the last one could be sort of this, like the essence of this creature, and it's just this. It's like a giant snow, it's like an abdominal. I can't say the word. It's like a yeti, like a giant yeti, but it's made out of snow, and with each hit, it becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until.
Ooh, I like that.
Right, but its essence becomes more condensed, so its powers improve as it gets smaller, because it's pretty much
it's more refined.
Because it's doing less to facilitate the environment around it and doing more to preserve its own life.
I like that. I like that a lot.
As it gets smaller, it's channeling all that into everything. And then I like this idea just came into my mind. I like the last bit of it turning into like a maybe a teardrop or it's like 3 inches around, and it's just a snowflake of like constantly forever cold ice. And that's what this monster becomes at the very end, and that's how it dies, and that's sort of like a token that your players have of this encounter, like this forever frozen thing that can freeze things as that it touches or something maybe.
And that was exactly the item I found. Okay, so I found 2 items in the DMG so far that I think could be cool things at the center of this. One is kind of like a way bigger reward, and it is the Bowl of Commanding Water Elementals.
Nice.
Found on page 156.
I like that.
So it just says that as long as the bowl is filled with water, you can speak its command word and summon a water elemental. So it is a big deal. You are out of nowhere summoning a challenge rating 5 or 6 thing that you can just command. So I either see that like one of those is frozen in this big like spire of ice, or there's another magic item called an elemental gem. Is that what it is? Yes, an elemental gem. They are smaller, more fist-sized, and you can shatter it once to summon the elemental that it's associated with. So there's like rock ones, there's air, fire, and water. You could make a custom one that summons a like frost elemental that's like a hybrid between fire
the 2
and
items.
Yes, yeah. And you could maybe have it be where, going back to that whole spire of ice, maybe as you're fighting this, you see this spire of ice in the middle start cracking as you are doing damage to this monster. So you're kind of like, okay, these things must be linked. Like, we couldn't break this spire on our own, but as we damage the monster, the spire breaks. So let's keep fighting the monster. Right. And then when you completely kill it, the spire kind of like either implodes upon itself or it shatters, and you find this, elemental gem, like you said, as like a token of like, I did it, yay.
Right. And then the rumbling starts, and the cave starts collapsing, or just like a standard escape scene.
I was thinking too, what could be cool with that is like as you break this, frozen spire, the skyline kind of changes, and it kind of seems like the sun, like a sun that you don't see. There's the skyline itself changes and begins to get more like red. The northern lights go away, and the snow starts to melt. So now this huge plain of just snow is now this huge plain of just open water. And the portal itself, you can see, is starting to collapse, and you have to like swim out of this portal before it collapses. That way, it's just swimming's just different. It's different than just walking or running. It's like, oh, you can't just walk back.
I also like the idea of like still floating ice platforms or something like that, and they're swaying back and forth as the waves pick up. And your players splash out.
Yeah, here's immediately what happens. Fighter wearing heavy armor. Not so easy to swim when wearing heavy armor. So now he's like sinking as maybe your rogue is trying to throw a rope to him to carry him, and your ranger's hopping along on ice, trying to like help. So it just creates a cool scene.
Yeah, it really, really, really does. So once we get out of the actual portal and we're back to the other world, and we've noticed what's transpired, we're now in front of this dragon. Well, actually, no. What should happen after that? We get out of the portal, and then let's say the kobold or something like that, they provided us this quest, since they're dragon, they're dragon lords anyways.
Dragon
like they love,
kin.
Yeah, they love dragons. It's like, thank you, and hey, I really appreciate all the things you did. Look at all this wonderful fauna that's come about, and you can start to see like the examples of this beautiful city that was long forgotten start to shine through the ice and start to sort of make itself known. And then the kobold's like, and for your payment, you got to go to this place right here, and it's like a cave within this old abandoned city, or it's actually like a tower or a temple or something like that, and that's where you meet up with it. That's where you meet up with the dragon, right? Like that's like the best way to go about doing this, right?
No, I agree. That way, like you go in because you're expecting like to go in and like the door holding your reward is now unfrozen or something like that. So as you go in, like the doors at the front are unfrozen enough that you can now like completely push them open. And then as you kind of push the doors open, and as the door itself is like creaking open as your fighter and your wizard are like pushing it or whatever, as it opens up, you have somebody roll to look through with perception, and as you look through, you see like this this breath of air or this like gust of air kind of like hits you in the face, and you look through. I can just see like a player like looking through this crack in the movie screen that is my mind, and as they do, like, and across the room it's like black, and all of a sudden you just see this one orb of an eye open up, and it has like a reptilian like look to it and just like stares at you, and then it kind of like rises up slowly, and all your players are like, oh crap, we gotta get out of here.
Oh my god.
Exactly.
Because I think since this is a pretty fleshed out story, I have a question for you in terms of how you deal with high level. In this case, this is a high level challenge rating beast, and say you wanted to run this as an early session or something like that, maybe a low level session.
Yeah.
How do you deal with high challenge rating beast dealing with low level parties without them just getting squashed like a bug? And obviously the pride thing that you mentioned earlier is one way, but is there other ways that you've ever done that?
That's a good question. So immediately what comes to mind, because specifically it is a dragon, is I think of Dragon's Dogma, which I think you've played, question mark? So I think of Dragon's Dogma, where at the very beginning, like, you are a nobody fisherman, and you're just swinging your sword at this huge red dragon, and it's just like, you're kind of an idiot for fighting me. Let me make you this dude, and you have to, try to fight me for all eternity, but you won't win because you're a wuss.
I'm pretty sure that's verbatim as well.
I'm pretty sure he says it in like Elvish or something. I don't know.
Actually, I think we're going to get a copyright strike because of how well you emulate
how accurate it was.
Yeah, I'm sort of mad right now, but I'll have to deal with that. So thanks, Rich. Appreciate that.
Sorry. Oh, man. But I think something like that could, even if this isn't your, big bad of the session, it's definitely something out there that your players will now remember. Like, there is a dragon out there who we released, and we should probably at some point deal with once we get stronger. It could be as simple as, like, I see this dragon being frozen for forever, like bursting through these doors, you all rolling to see if you get like collapsed in rubble. Some get get buried in rubble, some don't. And then this dragon just like monologues, and it's just like think very much like Smaug. Like, these things are very just arrogant and boastful and prideful. So they're just like, free after centuries of slumber. Once again, insert dragon name here, is free to, rain terror across these lands.
That's his actual name.
Insert dragon name here.
Yeah.
Once again, Toothless is here to rain terror.
He didn't actually fill out all of his paperwork, and so they just said insert name here is the name of the dragon.
Yep. He's like, dang it, that's on my dragon passport.
That's on my dragon passport. Oh, man. I just wanted to go to Dragon Sylvania and go see how they make butter. But now I'm here stuck. Because of this guy. Hey, what kind of dragon would it be?
See, I don't think it can be a white dragon. Because those are the ones that are associated with cold, so it doesn't make sense for it to be frozen. So I'm thinking it either has to be, and also I'm thinking it can't be a red dragon, because frost isn't going to beat a red dragon,
right?
I'm thinking
I have
go ahead.
I have an idea for one. Tell me what you think. A shadow dragon.
Ooh, a shadow. See, I was going between either a shadow dragon or a green dragon. Because green dragons are very like manipulative, and they like pawns and stuff like that. So you could have this dragon that became this land's dictator, and it was created a Tundra. But I could also see a shadow dragon doing that exact same thing, and a shadow dragon that is like released again will have to go back to maybe rebuild its strength where it came from, which is like the Underdark or like a dark cave system. Which means you're not just going to go... I love green dragons, but, you're fighting them in a forest or you're fighting them in a jungle, and that's where I feel like, 50% of D&D adventures take place. So to be able to say, like, we have to go hunt this thing in the Underdark, that's a cool quest line that, is out there as an option, so your players are like, oh, yeah, let's go do that.
I actually like the black dragons as well.
What's the difference between the two?
Well, it looks like Black Dragon seems to be more of like a selfish and sort of singular dragon. They are really they fear and hate other dragons. They spy on draconic rivals from afar. They have kobolds infest their lairs like vermin. They become as cruel as their dark masters, often torturing and weakening captives. Actually, no. If that's the case, that probably wouldn't be the best way to go about it.
But what about this? Hear me out. What if that's a dark dragon or a shadow dragon? You said
That's a black dragon.
That's a black dragon.
Yes.
What if you're making this more your big bad? What if you have to go and parlay with, what if this is a green dragon or a blue dragon or whatever kind of dragon, and to trap it again, you're sent to parlay with a black dragon, and the black dragon knows, he's like, so you're the fools who released insert dragon name here. Well, if you know, and it's kind of like you have to impress him enough or give him something, and
based off of his ego and pride, he says, "Look, I'll do whatever it takes to get that dragon out of here."
And maybe you come full circle with this adventure. Maybe it's like you open the portal at the beginning and unfreeze him, and maybe once you go find this black dragon, he tells you the only way to beat this guy besides killing him is to reopen this portal.
Yep.
And it's got that cool cyclicalness to it.
Yep. Yeah. It's like we just did all this, and now we realize we have to undo the deeds that we've done already. Or it's like choosing the lesser of two evils. Like, which one are they going to choose? They have to make a choice as players at that point.
The evil I know or the evil I don't know.
Exactly. Because now, if this black dragon is aware that these players have sort of removed him from the equation, maybe this black dragon starts to try to prey on the land around it, or it starts to try to sort of terrorize the world around it. So I like the fact that it's a dragon themed episode. I think that's a good path to go from a storytelling perspective. I think it works really well.
Go figure. Dungeons and Dragons, all about the dragons.
Wait, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. What do you think the D in D&D stands for?
Delicious delectables.
Ooh.
I thought this was a pastries podcast. I thought we were going to make. I thought that's what we were doing.
Cooking with Cam.
Yeah. Hey everybody. I want you to switch to page 137 on Cooking with Cam D&D. But here, what we can do, it's your turn this week, actually.
Ooh, is it my week?
For the synopsis. I had to do some research while you were talking. So if I sounded like I wasn't listening, it's because I wasn't. So
no, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I'm used to it. Whatever.
Like, especially when we play Divinity Original Sin, and you're like, don't heal him. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's healed.
Oh my gosh. Guys, let me just say this real quick. Let me just say to any of you out there, in Divinity 2 Original Sin, I want to get it out there because I feel guilty to Cam all the time and this other guy we play with. There's a race of undead, okay? And just like with Final Fantasy rules, you heal an undead and it takes damage. You poison an undead and it heals. So one of my characters is a healer. You know who I always cast my healing spell on first? The undead guy in our party. And I'm embarrassed every time. Anyway, so let me go ahead and get into our synopsis. So I'm going to come up with like a word picture and spout that out real quick. What moment do I think is... I honestly, I have to go to the moment where they open the door.
Well, think on that real quick so we can do a summarization real quick of the episode.
Oh,
just like
okay.
a breakdown. Okay. Yeah, and then we can get into the synopsis. So essentially, the summary for the TLDR, this is what we're going to call this section now. The summary of this episode is these players have been prompted by a kobold to go and close a frozen portal. It's causing the area around this portal to freeze into a tundra-like state. Once they get inside the portal, they realize that this giant frost monster is causing all of this cold to billow out of the hole. They have to travel across a lot of the tundra areas to get to this portal in the first place. Once they defeat that monster, close the portal, they have to escape the portal without being trapped inside. Then they go and try to collect their treasure from the kobold. The kobold sends them over to the dragon, which they do not know is there. The dragon escapes, and that's as far as we got it. Then we added some other fun stuff like the black dragon trying to parlay with your players and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's the gist of it. But what about your synopsis now?
Okay, so this is my synopsis. The boom of your wizard's fireball echoes across this frozen tundra. As the snow melts where the fire erupted, you finally see it after minutes and maybe even an hour of digging through this snow. 2 large icy doors spanning at least 5 people wide and 30 high. Pushing together with all of your strength, you barely get these still somewhat frozen doors to creak and push open, the kobold behind you clapping giddily with maybe even too much excitement. As the doors push open, your rogue peers through the door, always, wanting to get in there and get that loot first. As he looks in, the building itself, still encased mainly in snow, doesn't have any window light going in. The rogue, as he steps in with a torch and lights it, begins looking up at all the different frozen and archaic artwork across the frozen cathedral. And then all of a sudden he hears a rustling, like the sliding of metal rustling across the entire floor. He throws the torch out in front of him, and as it bounces across the room, it hits against something. The rogue stares forward, his eyes still adjusting to the darkness, and then he sees in the darkness one large, rock-sized eye open wide, its eyes breaking the ice that was encrusting it closed. The eye focuses first on the light and then forward down at you, and the rogue turns around and runs out the door as it explodes behind him, a large dragon expanding its centuries frozen wings and bellowing out in a monologue about how insert dragon name here is free again to roam across the land. But that's my story of the guy of no name dragon.
Hello, my young children. I am insert dragon name here. You will all know my name or lack thereof.
If we make this into an episode, we have to make sure that throughout the supplement it just says, whenever it mentions the dragon, it says insert dragon name here, and at the very beginning of the supplement there's a table to roll for a dragon name.
Yes.
That way it makes sense. But other people who actually listen to the episode will be like, inside joke.
Hey, you see that, guys? We're here, and we're trying to make it to where you guys feel like you're a part of something, because you know what? You are. You're a part of something incredible, okay? And every time you hear our beautiful voices in your ears, you know exactly what's about to happen.
Exactly. Yep.
Speaking of what happened last week,
okay, so I'm assuming if you're listening to this episode and it is September 17th, that you are all caught up on Filling in the Gaps. And you know what? Good for you. We're glad you're here. Always enjoy having you. But you know what else you could do to kind of get your listen on? Maybe you're still at work plugging away at something, or you're driving home, you want something to listen to. You should swing on by and listen to our good friends Hit Dice. Wes from Hit Dice, the DM, was with us here last week. He's a great guy, and his party is starting, I believe, their 3rd arc. They started just this last week, so you got plenty of time to catch up. Wes is an amazing DM. His players are all fun and dynamic, and I mean that seriously. I know Critical Role is all professional voice actors, but these guys are fun. There's not a guy who's just I just want to roll my dice, and I don't know, I swing my sword. No, they all add their own flourishes, and their characters are fun. And Wes, we all loved when Matt Mercer killed a character, or maybe you didn't. Wes has killed 3 or 4 since the podcast started, so I think you guys will love it. Cam, anything you want to say as a sign off? Maybe tell them about our social medias.
Yeah, we do have social medias. You can follow us at all the main social media sites at Filling in the Gaps. You can find us over at Twitter. Have a lot of fun conversations there. Sort of break down our episodes into threads and do different threads around either the monsters inside the episode or the themes or scenarios or just different areas within the episode. You can follow us on our Instagram. At Filling in the Gaps. You can go join the conversation at our Discord that will be posted up in our you can also just find that at Filling in the Gaps, but we will have those links inside of our Reddit, which is another thing you can follow us at Filling in the Gaps. And is there any other social medias existing on this earth in the current state? We're going to develop a new social media website called Filling in the Goops. And
and you can follow us on that.
Yeah, and our username is insert username here, actually.
Yes. So, oh my gosh, so good. Yeah. So good.
But that's it, man.
Cool. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. As always, we hope that the ideas you got from this episode help you guys spark some idea to use for your next adventure. And as always, make sure you send us your next idea. Send us a theme and a scenario to one of our social medias. We'll put it on our list, and hopefully we'll be able to use it next time to help you guys fill in the gaps.